Hello, everybody. I am so glad that you're here. Welcome to Her Renewed Mind. And I'm so excited to welcome a special guest slash my newer sister, Melody Dowler. Dowlearn? Did I say your last name? I think, did I butcher it?
No, you did great.
Okay. Like,
Got
what
it.
a way to start.
It's
So,
okay.
welcome, Melody, to Her Renewed Mind.
Thank you.
Yay.
I'm excited to be here. It's been a while since we've hung out, and
Yes.
so I'm always up for a chat with one of my favorite sisters.
Yay, so good, so good. You guys, I met Melody last year, so 2023, November 2023, and we have a mutual sister. Shout out to Sharon Thomas. And you all have heard me talk about her. And so now that I'm saying out loud, I need to get her on this podcast as well. So, Sharon, listen, we need to schedule our date, girl. But Sharon hosted an all day, I'm going to say it was an experience. It really was. It was called Authenticated 2023. And Melody was one of the speakers there. And I am a researcher. So when I saw Melody, your name, your picture on the flyer, I'm like, I don't know Melody. I don't know who she is. And so I got on your website and I was like, uh, at the time, I'm like, oh, she's somebody I'm rocking with already because you were talking about identity. You had an exercise at the time on there. We'll get into that. But my soul, my spirit just resonated with you and what you were releasing just through your website because it blessed me because I actually went through the exercise myself and it was so powerful. And so then when you came last November and I heard you speak and walk us through the exercise as a group, and I'm like, I just love it. I just saw your confidence. I saw your poise, but I also saw your humor, like, and just your grace on the stage and you just sharing your story. I just was attracted to that. So, because you're my sister. So, I was like, she is fun. I like her so much. And I'm doing this, you guys, because we have pom poms and I'm such the cheerleader. So, like, I know I was shaking my pom pom for Melody. So yeah, so that was really long, but that's how we first met. And then I'm like, I gotta get her on Her Renewed Mind because I want my listeners, my viewers to get some of this goodness or get all this goodness that you release because you're a game changer. And so you're here to help the people. So I'm like, she's gonna come on and help us.
I love it. Thank you for that very generous introduction. Oh my goodness. But yeah, we had a great time at Authenticated.
It was so good.
So
So I
good.
would love for you to share, Melody, just a little bit about who you are and what you release. I shared a little bit, like just a taste, but we're gonna, of course, get into it as we keep going. But
Yeah.
just what you're here to release on this earth, how God has shaped you and positioned you.
Yeah, no, I'm really passionate about identity, like you mentioned earlier, and God has really positioned me to help people step into what I call their kingdom identity. We can unpack that later, but really step into their identity, their God-given identity in a practical way
Mm.
so that they can move forward and toward the dream of their heart. Growing up, I was always kind of a student, still am a student of observation. I learned by observation. And even as a young person in the church, I always thought, man, we profess all of these things about ourselves, right? We have this idea of who we are, and yet some of the most broken and dysfunctional people are in the church. And so there's a disconnect
Mhm.
somewhere. And that always has kind of sat with me, even as a young girl, right? And so God began to unpack this revelation of identity and the connection of identity to your dream and how the two are so intertwined, right? And understanding one begins to unlock the other. And so it was a journey in my life that the Father unlocked in me. And so I've been able to help others step into that.
I love it. You just said so much there. That's such goodness. So thank you. Thank you for that. This is gonna be good, you guys. So please lock in. So tell me about, your childhood, where you grew up, and you talked about like having this, I don't know if you said revelation, I'm gonna call it revelation about identity because you were very observant. So
Mhm.
do you remember like there was probably multiple, right, things that kind of stood out, but is there one in particular, like, okay, it was really like that pin that you want to put in your childhood, like, man, that just really opened my eyes even more. So ask like 3 questions, kinda.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm thinking because there's some I could share, but I don't want to be, you always want to honor the people in your life and you don't ever want to go too personal.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I will say, I grew up in a Pentecostal church. My great uncle was the pastor. My father was the superintendent of the church. It's a small church in Dallas. And growing up, I just saw things sometimes that as a child, I couldn't articulate why I think it was when I started like my early teen years, really is when I really started looking
Mhm.
at what people were professing and again, and the reality or the fruit in their life and how the two just didn't jive. And I specifically do remember I was at a very well-known youth conference and it was in the summer and we were sitting there. There were thousands of students at this youth conference. And I can remember sitting there and them talking about, who we were in Christ and who we are. And it, as I sat there that night, I kept thinking, but when I look at a lot of the adults or the people who would be role models or mentors in my life, and I love them and I honor them, but their lives didn't necessarily reflect. My experience being close to them wasn't exactly in line. I began to think like through my life, and I began to really start. That's when I started looking for people who
Hmm.
are really exemplifying these things that we professed and we talked about,
Mhm.
right? And not that there's not real life, like not diminishing the things that we walked through, but who is the person that was really exemplifying who was really walking in this truth, right? And where was the fruit of that? Which led me to begin to really look at authors and like at the time, like, preachers on TV. So I began to look at, okay, there's nobody in my life who I feel like, not that there's nobody in my life who was exemplifying this, but I was looking at it for next level,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like who's owning this?
Yeah.
Okay. And not denying people our humanity. But so then I began to really pursue people who I felt like were in a place of this next level identity. But
Yeah.
then there was another disconnect because they were not vulnerable and they were not authentic. So they were almost too far the other direction,
Mhm.
right? So again, there's no short answer to this because it was such a process
Yes.
in
Yes.
life of really observing people on both ends of this kind of paradigm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is so powerful. That is so powerful. And I think, of course, because now, me meeting you in your life when you did, like, there's this, like you said, this call, this charge to help people step into kingdom identity and their assignment. So when did you first like hear about kingdom and how did you put kingdom and identity together? Like, what was that process for
That's
you?
a good question. So I was involved in a very large church here in Amarillo, and I could tell it wasn't, there was a place I got to where I was like, okay, God, this isn't enough. And we're still missing something here. Like not corporately, not collectively. It's probably me. There's something you're doing in me and I can't quite, if I serve 10 more hours a week, it's not going to fix it. Right? You come to this place where you're like, okay, God, what's happening? At the
Yeah.
same time, began to have this very profound interest in the word kingdom because nobody was talking about it. But as I was reading through the scriptures, it kept popping up. So
Mhm.
these things are happening parallel,
Yeah.
and I'm not connecting them, right? And I began to ask about kingdom, but nobody really like, well, it's the church. The kingdom is the church. I'm like, no, I don't think so. Because if it was
Yeah.
the church would look a lot different. Right. So I was really, really at the very beginning of trying to grasp kingdom, understand what this means in the context of my life, and then also realize there was something missing in my own life. And I was really irritated, unsatisfied, like nothing, the grace had lifted. That's how we say that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And God led us out of that church structure into home church for a while.
Mhm.
And what he was really began to speak to me, let's go back to square one. I want to
Mhm.
show you some things. And it was in this space that he began to speak to me about kingdom as well as identity. I'm still not putting them together, right? I'm like in two simultaneous seasons of learning about myself and learning about the kingdom. And as God began to walk me through this, and part of this journey was going back to the beginning, going back to my childhood, really letting God begin to teach me who I am, right? In a way that was very personal. It was
Yeah.
very interesting, but it also kind of set the stage, if you will. And it was really the beginning of that education for me to begin to help other people come through that same process.
Man, that is so powerful.
Yeah.
So what did the and I love it because at the very beginning of your intro, you were talking about, teach people in practical ways.
Yes.
And I thank you.
Yeah.
Someone who has benefited, right, from you
Yeah.
doing that and even hearing you at Authenticated press into that because and I'm just thinking about, my upbringing and I'm grateful for my foundation, right? It's a
Right.
part of my story and testimony. It makes me
Yes.
who I am, and I can point back to it and see the different, you know, connection points and levels, that God has taken me. And I know that I didn't even know I needed practical, right? I don't think I ever would have voiced that. But then hearing people say, okay, like, let's just break it down because I think I have, and not just me, but I'm speaking for me, but I know it's not just me have made things so complex. Or
Yes.
I've heard things and I'm like, okay, yeah, yes. And not just in church, but even in school, these concepts that I hear, these theories, because I do have a doctorate degree. So I've been in a lot of schooling, right? And
Yeah.
I know you're an educator, so you get that. And so and there's a lot of complex things in theory, but it's like, okay, how do we break it down to that
Mhm.
practical? So I say all that to say thank you, but also this journey, what did that look like practically for you? You were talking about like God was taking you through your childhood.
Yeah.
Like, go back to one of those days when you were home. Like, were you
Yeah.
in your room journaling? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. It was so fun. So interestingly enough, at the same time, I actually stepped out of high school education. I've been a educator for 10 years, to homeschool. To homeschool our youngest. And so there was a lot of, God was, and I didn't realize that at the time, but he was orchestrating, right, this whole space for me to return to rest, to return to a place of remembering, right? And so I remember one day he said, Melody, I just want you to think back. Like, I want you to begin to journal about your dreams. Again, he's bringing this whole component of dreams, right? Your dreams as a child, and let's just go back. And I'm okay, okay, like that doesn't seem very deep, God. Like that's not a mystical experience. That's not like Moses on the mountain. We're gonna do what? And so I began to just journal because I'm a writer, right? I just began to journal as the details and the things that I could remember. And I would go back and what did I love doing as a child? Where did I come alive?
Mm,
What were these moments the moments that shine bright? That's like I like to call them. What are these moments that show not a Christmas, not necessarily a hallmark moment in my life, but
right.
where I was fully alive and I can really step into that moment as a child? Well, it was when I, corralled all the neighborhood friends and made them sit in my bedroom and set up TV trays, and they were the students and I was the teacher.
I love it.
Right? Remember that clearly, right? You know,
I love it. And they all oblige. Like they all
of
came
course they
in.
did. They did not do.
Or
Yes, ma'am.
like you're like, this is what we're doing
That's
at
what we're
this
doing.
time. Be
That's right.
there.
Yeah, be there. Be in my bedroom. Find your name on your TV tray, your name tag, right? I'm going to teach you.
Tags and
So,
everything.
yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, maybe. So this is,
I get it. I get it.
yeah, you get it. Right. And so it was in this very simple, this is kind of go back to these are one of the simple things. It's practical, right? Because I think we get so caught up sometimes in the spiritual that we
Yeah.
deny our humanity. And Jesus was God, he was God man. He was, he was just as much, he was the intersection of humanity and,
Yeah.
and deity. And we forget there's so much information in the actual humanity of who we are.
Yeah.
Those aren't just little things, those are big things. And I think we have bypassed that information. We have overlooked it inadvertently, like looking for God, looking for the spiritual. They're really not compartmentalized, but I think there is something to really going and taking a look at our humanity and saying, my goodness, I love doing that. That's really, wow, that brings me great joy. Wow, I come alive. Wow, I'm in my flow state. It may
Yes.
sound silly to other people, but you know what? I could bake cupcakes for hours and never sit down. I mean, that's not me.
Right.
But what is that thing that brings you a lot of information there, people, and we have overlooked it
Yeah.
because we are so focused on, being this textbook, good Christian, and nothing wrong with that, right? Our hearts are in the right place. We've just, I think, missed a part of the equation and unlocking truly who we are.
Ooh. Ooh. Couple thoughts come to mind. When you were talking about like the humanity, and then you mentioned the word simple, and
Yeah.
then it made me think about the scripture that talks about coming to Christ as a child,
Yeah.
right? And I'm trying to remember the full verse, but maybe I'll look it up and put it in the show notes, you guys.
Mhm.
But I remember that verse coming to me. I used to work in my daughter's school, and it's a junior kindergarten through 12th grade school.
Okay.
And I was in the upper school, and there was to get to the other part of the school, you had to go outside. So it was like a porch covering colonnade situation, real pretty, and then the field. And so there was a playground in the far corner. And I remember going outside, and I was in, and this was just a few years ago. So I definitely was grace over grind. Like that's just God has brought me to more of a place of rest,
Yes.
and slowing down. And I remember looking at the kids playing and just reminding me of that verse, like get back to the simple. Look at the joy that they are experiencing and the
Yeah.
laughter that you hear on the playground. And it was just so precious for me to just take that in and remind me that like I am a child of God. Like,
Mhm.
and the other things too, but just getting down to that simple
Yes.
childlike trust and childlike joy. Like that's on the
Yes.
inside of me. And just because I'm older and experienced life, like I can still tap into that because that's still a part of me.
Oh, yeah.
I thought about all that
Yeah.
as you were talking, just
Yeah.
going back to your childhood and thinking about those things that brought you joy, you know, and those moments.
And that's the thing. I always people say, "Why childhood?" And a lot of people, and if you're listening today and you're like, "I can't go back to my childhood," like that's
Mhm,
hard for some people.
mhm,
That's okay. Go back just as far as you can to a time, because here's the thing: in our childhood, in our youth, we were closer to our point of origin, which is the Father's heart, than we are right now. We were still in the partnering with a belief system that we could and we should, and this was fun, and this is why. It was just pure joy. It was our why. That's
mm,
all we knew. And so in that place, there was a purity, right? There, we were so much closer and in alignment with who we truly are, right? There was this convergence because the world hadn't told us we couldn't. It
mm,
hadn't been our experience. We were just functioning from who we were in a child state. So that's why there's so much gold there.
yeah,
It is really worth some time to sit with the Father, and really it's remembering.
yeah,
It's not becoming, it's just remembering who
yeah,
you were and partnering with that,
yeah,
right? Obviously, there's a maturity and there's a depth and it's unto a purpose, but my goodness, we can let go of that for a little bit and just remember who we were and say, wow,
yeah,
I'm gonna return to that and
yes,
let some of this other stuff go.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's so good. So, and I know you talked about like that time that you had come out of the classroom, you had time and space
Mhm.
to do those reflections and remembering. And so I'd love for you to speak to that busy mama,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
like just how can they just come away? What could that look like for that mom who's working, outside the home
Oh, yeah.
and has, you know, children,
Yes.
husband or
Mhm.
not, I'm a single mom. And so I've definitely walked through that
Mhm.
as well. Like
Yeah.
figuring out I'm feeling this call to come inside. I'm feeling this call to slow down, to
Mhm.
rest, to remember,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
get back to who I really am. So what advice would you give for that?
Yeah. I'd say hold space. I was a single mom for 8 years as well, so I understand that fully. At the time I had a teenager as well. My children were 11 years apart, but you have to hold space for you. You
Mm,
have to. You cannot be the best version of yourself for everyone else if you don't hold space for you. Whether that's 30 minutes in the morning, you go for a walk. You and I were talking about walking earlier,
mm,
whether it's on your lunch break, you go somewhere quiet, but you have to carve out that quiet. It may be 30 minutes, it may be 15, but somewhere.
mm,
And you are worth the time. You are worth the time, and you need that time. You need that time to sit, to be quiet. And, in the quiet, God is there. He's there in the loud, but
yeah,
you don't have to feel selfish because you take that 30 minutes and just sit in quiet with the Father and journal. You don't have to pray for everybody in the world. Like, Sometimes we put these things on ourselves, like, I gotta have 30 minutes to pray and I need 15. Just find 15 to 30 minutes for you.
Yeah.
You don't even have to say a word. The Father hears your heart.
Yeah.
Pick up your pen, journal, sit quietly, walk.
Yeah.
Maybe it's painting. Maybe it's just drawing and just reflecting with the Father. Whatever brings you rest and joy.
Yeah.
I know for moms, it's probably sitting in a dark room with a hot cup of coffee and just staring at the wall, because that was like luxury to drink the entire cup of coffee while it's hot. But you have to find that space where you have
Yeah.
to be so intentional, but you're worth it. And good things, there's so much good fruit on that, right? That is going to feed your family,
Yeah.
right? That is going to do things for your children, because if you unlock it in yourself, you unlock it for your children, right? And to me, that's the most beautiful thing, because your ceiling becomes their floor. So I feel, as a parent, I owe it to myself
Mm.
to break through some of these barriers, right? Whether they were put on me by others or they were self-imposed, because what I break through, my kids don't have to.
Mm.
So
Mm-mm.
that totally shift. It's not a selfish 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It is necessary for my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, because
Yeah.
I'm paving a way, even if it's 15 minutes a day. We're taking territory.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it. And far greater results than any other, running them around. You still do those things like, right,
we do.
running them around to practice, and helping them with homework. But taking time for yourself allows you to show up well in those spaces.
Yeah, and it teaches them that, hey, mom is important. If it's important enough for her to take time for herself, that as an adult, I'm going to value taking time for myself.
Yeah, that's it. Woo,
Yeah.
I'm right there, you guys. Listen, I'm like, Kyla, see what I'm doing? I'm doing because I have done a lot for you.
That's
Because
right.
there could be, there's mom guilt that, I've heard that
Oh,
term forever that tries to come. But I listen,
yeah.
I said, not anymore.
Yeah. Right. That's right. Same here, like, well,
Yeah,
I was a terrible mom in these years, so I've got to make it back because I was so busy and I was working 3 jobs. So I owe you three. No, just be the best version that you could be of
yeah,
yourself in the moment, in the day. And that's all anybody can ask.
that's it.
Yeah.
That is it. Thank you so, so much. So you mentioned, being a writer and kingdom identity and those things coming together. I love for you to talk about like your book. It's Kingdom Identity, Rediscover Your Identity and Align Your Vision. When did the book come out? When did you say, okay, I'm doing this thing? I'm writing this book. I'm going to take this message, that God has given me and that he's allowed me to walk out
Yeah.
and share it beyond,
Mhm.
my circle or, the people that I've been talking to or coaching and things like that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. So I had been coaching in the space of identity, and I just realized that I would go places and people wanted to talk about this. And,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of people that, coaching wasn't accessible to. So I really wanted to give them a tool, and I really wanted to get this in people's hands. And so I sat down to 2020, was it 2021? Wow, it's been 3 years. No, 2022. I'm sorry, the time gets away. It was
Okay. No, I'm like,
yeah, it's been out for 2 years. And so what I really wanted to do was give people, again, a practical,
okay,
right? A practical tool to really unpack their kingdom identity, their God-given identity. And I use that word kingdom because identity is one of those words that is a chameleon word. It's a hard word to when I say identity, every single person just jumps to a different
yeah,
definition, a different association of that word. And so people are like, what are you talking about? Are we talking about gender politics? Are we talking about, like, what are you talking about? Kingdom identity, right? And so this is truly, it is your God-given truths and superpowers, right? That you were uniquely given so that you could fulfill your destiny and bring kingdom to earth. It's everything that was deposited in you, right? That was set aside for you before the beginning of time, so that in order, right? There's a purpose unto a purpose so that you would fulfill your destiny and bring kingdom to earth, right? That's how we bring kingdom to earth, all showing up in our kingdom identity, right?
so
All partnering. There's this thing where I think there's a pushback sometimes in the church where I'm like, well, if I start focusing on me, that becomes very self-righteous. It's very egocentric. It's very, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to stay in humility. Okay, I get that. But if you think about, for all the parents listening, you can have 2, 3, 4, 5 children. They're all your children. They're all part of your family, but they are so different. And you
yeah,
wonder, right? How can I have all these kids that can be so different? And I think sometimes we deny ourselves our individuality, not realizing there's a purpose, a divine purpose
Yeah.
behind our uniqueness, that when we begin to accept it, embrace it, remember it, partner with it, right? Because we all bring a different facet of God to earth, right? We all manifest something a little differently. 10 of us could carry joy, because I've seen this with my clients. I can have 10 people who they walk in joy, impact, confidence, and their expression
Yeah.
is very different.
Yeah.
Why? Because we all show up differently. God is limitless. His natures are limitless. So wouldn't it make sense that each one of us could shine and manifest him just a little bit differently,
Yeah.
right? His expressions are limitless in the earth. And so we are limitless because he is. And so I wanted to help people unpack that practically,
Yeah.
because what I was seeing, there's a lot of people who have this dream, who have this vision, but without the practicality and the understanding of the context of their identity on which the dream hangs,
Mhm.
they're shooting for this goal without any practical understanding of who they are. And most people are looking how somebody else did it. They're trying to follow that formula, and
Mhm.
then they're frustrated because they're not hitting the mark for
Yeah.
themselves. So how do I move towards my dream in the context of my kingdom identity? How do I understand that one actually supports the other? It's giving somebody the strategy. So that's why I wrote the book, so that, and it's not super deep. It's a quick read. I share a lot of my story in there and kind of how I process through these seasons, but just to kind of get you turned it's just the awareness that, oh, I am a context, I'm a framework, a divine framework, uniquely positioned in this time to get to that dream. That dream of my heart is, it is valid, it is real. um it is for me to have now, but the way that I get there is really understanding how I'm wired and how I function from a practical level.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long answer. I could talk about this for so just cut me off,
Is
Candace.
why I have you on the podcast, right? But you just said two words that I love. I love because I'll just say it. You said, I am a divine framework.
Mhm.
I've never heard that,
Yeah.
but I rock with it. I just
Yeah.
haven't heard those words put together, right? I know
Yes.
framework. I
Right.
know divine. Wait, I am a divine framework. And so, like my mental, my old pastor used to say this, mental mechanisms are clicking. Right. And so I want you to talk more about that divine framework. And I want y'all to get the book. So, listen, support the book. I'll have the links in the show notes and all the good stuff. So, can you talk more about that divine framework?
Yeah, absolutely. Because here we are an extension of the Father's heart, right? We are made in the image of God, right? He's in our DNA. There's a level of divinity inside of us because we
Yeah.
are God made manifest in the earth realm, right? And when you understand that, in the practicality of your humanity, right, in the simplicity of the everyday things that you are drawn to, that you keep pushing aside because they don't seem holy enough, right? When you begin to say, whoa, whoa, God is in that.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I will embrace that and partner with him here, even though it doesn't seem like what we have put on a platform,
Right.
it opens up and it begins to unlock this freedom and this permission to say, oh my gosh, I am God made manifest, in my baking service.
Come
I
on.
am bringing
Yeah.
kingdom to earth by serving children in this after school program because this is my heart,
Yeah.
right? And it begins to open up and unlock this expression of the Father that can only come through you. And that's what I tell people. If you don't partner with your divine framework, if you don't get on board with what God has been trying to get you to see since you were a child,
So
because
true.
the pattern is there. And
Yeah.
that's when I take people through this identity mapping methodology, you begin to see the pattern, you see it over and over. You can't unsee it.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, whoa, it's
There the
always
whole
been there.
time.
And
Yeah.
God has been in every single seemingly mundane detail. And there's this pattern emerging. There's this framework, and
Yeah.
the fingerprints of the Father are all over it.
Woo!
Yeah. That's a game changer because you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, and I actually love doing that. Isn't that
Yes.
fun?
Yes. Oh
I
my
actually
goodness.
come alive and I can let this nonsense go that I've been trying to become, that I've been trying to add in, that I've been trying to think I need to somehow work into who no, no, let that go.
Yeah.
He's not in that for you. So
Yeah.
here. And when you step into that, it comes alive. And
Yeah.
before you know it, you are right in line with that dream. You are moving towards, it's beginning to unlock every season in little bits, right? Different facets, this pedal, that pedal. And before
Yeah.
you know it, you are stepping into that fullness.
Woo!
Yeah.
Listen,
I get
y'all.
excited. I get excited because I'm
I
just
know.
like,
Me too, because there's like these thoughts going on at the same time as you're speaking. Like I'm like recounting my, my childhood like really quickly, but then I'm also thinking about the time that you have with clients, that you coached in the past and them getting it, right? Like
yes,
as you're working with them and their
yes,
eyes just start to glow and they're like, "Oh my gosh,
yeah.
that all along was God," or "I really do love doing that." So do you have like one story you can share out of all the stories
You
about
know,
someone that you worked with and it was just like y'all probably were crying? I don't know.
yeah,
It was just such a powerful moment for them.
it, gosh, there's so many. Like, I know, I'm trying to think of one. There was one gentleman that I worked with, and I remember, we were going through, he was so much fun.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe that it's been here all along and I never saw. It's really just learning how to see things again, like just
Yeah.
looking through a new lens, right? We look through the lens of identity. We're not looking through the lens of emotion. We're not looking through the lens of
Yeah.
past trauma that frees people up because a
Yeah.
lot of people are connected to these key moments in their life with a trauma bond,
Yeah.
right? Or with an emotional high or low, totally misreading that season. So we look through identity, but I was working with this man and we got to the end and he said, oh my goodness, like I cannot believe these are my conclusions. And he goes, and here's the thing, deep down inside, I always knew these were my conclusions. It's just like, but now I have the freedom to say, this is me. He
Yeah.
goes, and the job that I'm in, he goes, it's not for me. And I know that it's not for me. And this is proven to me. He goes, I don't know what I'm going to do. But what I always tell my clients is like, look, when you begin to stand in the authority of who you are with the awareness, the environment responds
Yes,
differently to
ma'am.
you. You want
Yes.
a biblical example? Moses.
Come
He
on.
leaves, right? He runs away from Egypt, right? And God sends him back and the truth of who he is. This is who you are, Moses. This is your purpose. This is your authority. This is your identity. Moses goes back. The environment responds to him,
Come
right?
on.
Because he is standing in the truth of who he is. So I was telling, we were talking about this. And so I said, well, what I find is that most of the time when my clients land in the space of awareness and understanding, the environment responds differently. Let's just see what happens for you. So he comes back a week later. He goes, you're not going to believe this. I said, oh, try me. Everyone tells me this. He goes, well, my boss called me in to a meeting and said, you know what? We really feel like you would be better in this other position. We've been watching you. He goes, and Melody, it was the position that I always saw myself in, but I was too scared to ask for. I said, did you say anything? He goes, I said, yes. He goes, but how did he know? I said, because there's already a shift. You,
Already.
you've already moved into the awareness. And when we can partner with who we are, then the world sees it,
Yeah.
right? But when you're not partnering with it, no one else will see it. You have to
Yeah.
partner with it first. And I hear a lot of times, well, people don't see my gift. I'm not being recognized. Well, have you seen it? Do you truly understand who
Come
you are?
on.
You might be partnering with somebody else's identity, and that's the problem. There's dissonance in the atmosphere. So anyway, it was just cool. I see it over and over again. And so
Yeah, I know you do.
I get excited.
Yes, that is powerful. The environment responds. I just wrote that down. The
Mhm.
environment responds. When we come into that awareness about who we are,
Yeah.
right?
And we partner with that, our
Partner with
truth.
that truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think we get a I think we have a sense of it, but again, practically, we don't know how to step into it for ourselves. So
Yeah.
we look to see who else might be exemplifying, right? Or manifesting what we think we have. And so we begin to partner with their path. We begin to partner with what they're putting out. And
Mhm.
that's not for us.
Mhm.
But it's because we don't have the tools, we don't have the know-how or the knowledge. And
Yeah.
so that's a common mistake that I see, which is why we get frustrated because we can't step into our dream because we're using somebody else. We're trying to step onto their path and do it the way they did it,
Yeah.
right? That formulaic thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is something. A thought that just came is, we both I've been in the education system before, not a certified teacher, but doing college access. You've taught. Wait, are you teaching again? Did I?
No, no, I'm
Okay.
not. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, did I see something that said
Yes.
okay. Um, but I'm just thinking about our babies in school, right? And the
Yes.
education system and
Yes.
how critical it is um, for our students. And I say our always because it just,
Yes. They are. They are our
yeah,
students.
there are our students.
Yeah.
To grab a hold of their identity, their kingdom identity,
Mhm.
because just the way our education system is set up, you're getting all these ideals and
Yes.
models and theories, and that this is what you have to do to get to be a
Yes.
success. And because you've met students like that too. I have worked with a lot of students. Well, I'm only doing this. I only want to go to college, Miss Candace,
Yes.
because my parents went, and I think that's the path that I have to go, or I have to be this go into this career path because that's what everyone else did, but I really don't want to, but I don't want to disappoint,
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't know if I have a question about that,
Yeah.
but I guess, did you have the opportunity to kind of work with students in that way when you were in the education system and kind of like sneaking in
I did.
covertly, like as you were starting to come to that revelation?
Yeah. In my last year of teaching, I was kind of on this path. I was, I taught Spanish 1, 2, and 3. And at the time, Amarillo had become the #1 refugee center in Texas because Hurricane Katrina. I don't know if you remember way back then.
I
We
do.
would, yeah, Houston was our place for refugees to come in, but it was exhausted because of Hurricane Katrina, the resources. And so in Amarillo, so in our high school, we had 27 languages. And so I would get students, English is their second language, and they put them in a Spanish classroom. And you understand like how these things happen in the education system, like who thought that up?
Yeah.
So I would have, I have kids who were homeless. I would have kids who were driving Range Rovers. I had the full spectrum of every demographic that you could think of, right? Every nationality, race, language,
But that's
socioeconomic.
kingdom.
Right. So here's the thing. No one cared really about conjugating verbs.
Right.
So I'm like, Lord, how do I reach these children? How do I get them all on the same page? How do I unify my classroom? Because you had girls in a hijab. I mean, you just had a lot of things going on. I had 45 kids. It's a lot. So it's truly more inner city than what you would think Amarillo would be,
Yeah.
and just so many things. And so he was like, well, talk to them. Everybody loves to talk about who they are. Don't you love these conversations? I'm like, oh, bell ringer. We're not going to review. Okay, here's what we're going to do. So I began to talk to the students about their dreams. We began to talk about challenges, how we overcame. We began to talk about our superpowers. And we really began to start the classroom with this warm up where I really wanted them to reconnect with themselves.
Mhm.
Let me tell you, there were tears and we had to go to Spanish and I had to cut it off. So I had them. And then they began to see it and we began to edify it in one another. And we really began to create a family in that classroom, in a safe space for the
Yeah.
students. And it was probably the only time in their week, their day,
Yeah.
they really began to tap into identity. And so it was a game changer for me. It was a game changer for them. And I still look back at that year and think, why hadn't I been doing this, all 9 years? Of course, I always spoke. I can always see people 5 and 10 years down the road. And that's what I tend to speak to and connect to,
Yeah.
right? But to really bring them into the process.
Yeah.
I think like I can tell you all day what I can see prophetically in you, and that's encouraging. But when you can turn down the prophetic, and I think there's a place that we need to do that sometimes, and give people the space and the grace, and just invite them in to what we can see in a
Yeah.
way that they can get their hands around it and it makes sense to them. So
Yes.
now they have it and they can run with it.
Yes. So
And
good.
so yeah,
That's so good.
practical.
They have that ownership, right? And
Yes.
you facilitated like the journey for them, and
Yes.
then they can take
Yes.
it.
They can take it,
Okay.
keep running
You know,
with it. Yeah.
yes, you're passing that baton, right?
Mhm.
Giving them something to
Mhm.
hold on to, and then let
Yes.
them run with it. That's so
Yeah,
good.
enable them to
Yeah.
to really so I think back to that year and I thought, wow, this is powerful
Hmm.
for our students. It doesn't really matter who you are.
Yeah.
Why? Because we all are made in the image of God, all of us, whether or not we realize it. Some
Yeah.
people still don't realize it.
Yes.
But
But
what a
all.
beautiful conversation we can start having. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, it would be really cool to like talk to those students who were in your class.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you connect with
But they
any.
still find me. They
Oh,
find
of course. A student always finds their teacher.
me.
Always, right? The environment response.
Yes, they do. And I'll be the grocery store and I'll hear Miss Dowlearn. And I'm like, it's been 15 years. I have no makeup on. Who just said Miss? You know how that goes. But
That's
it's
so
so good
good.
to see them. They'll come give me a big old hug. And sometimes I don't even remember their name because I
Yeah.
had so
Yeah.
many students. But yeah, it's fun.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. This has been so, so powerful. I do want to ask you, like, what are you dreaming about lately? Like, I know you were doing coaching. Just catch us up, like our listeners have always known you. Like, what's God got you up to? What do you?
Well, about 6 months ago, God picked me up out of the space that I had been in, the coaching space, working primarily with church people for about 4.5 years. And he dropped me into a whole new space. And I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing, God? Right. So he dropped me into the business space for a little while. And he told me I was in a season of really developing my inner snake. And I was like, hold up. I don't even know like what that means. And
Yeah.
that doesn't sound fun. And that's right. So and it was that verse, about being, as innocent as doves and shrewd as serpents, and really where God is taking. And I understand this. And again, understanding your season, I'm really here to really develop my ability to really calculate and understand what's going on around me and where everybody is positioned, and not just there comes a time when you can speak life into everybody, right? And you want to partner with everybody and you want to get them to the next level. There's
Right.
also a time to understand how you're supposed to connect with people
Mm.
and not realizing it's always the way you've connected with them in the past, right? And so God has me here really learning how to move through secular spaces shrewdly,
Okay.
in a way that I can carry the assignment to the place where he wants it to get to.
Mm.
Because I know for me, I'm moving from the individual identity to systemic identity. Like I really want to go into systems. That's always been my heart. And to really change the culture and
Right.
the identity, right? Restore the identity
Yeah.
of systems and cultures where it's been lost, and help to bring unification back. And so I feel like I've been in the place, and obviously I still work with people on occasion, individual. I love, that's my heart. I'll never not be there. But in order to get into that place of systems, I'm going to have to be a little bit more calculated, right? I realize, and I can't just trust everybody with this same, like, I love, again, this is something that God's developing in me. It's very unique to where he's taking me to really understand and to be able to read the room and just hold my space in a new way that I haven't always done in the past. And so it's been to be very vulnerable. It's been a very interesting, challenging, and I thought I had encountered some hard stuff in the old space. Oh my goodness, no. So what are we doing here, God?
Yeah.
I know what we're
Yeah.
doing here, but I know it's a short season. I know it's like going back to kindergarten.
Huh.
It's like, okay, we need to hone these skill sets. It won't take you long, but you gotta understand
Yeah.
some things that you missed in past seasons. So yeah, so I feel like I'm going really from the individual to the systems.
Right.
There's some systems I want to impact and
Yeah.
restore identity so that we can move the way that we were always intended to, um, and go back, before the trauma, before the hurt, and really begin to function at a deeper level of identity, because identity takes many different levels, right? We never want to diminish that. We never want to diminish the facets that we understand, but also realizing there's always
Mhm.
a deeper truth.
Mhm.
Again, I'm giving you the long answer, Candace. I'm sorry, but this is something I'm still processing
Yeah.
out. You asked me a question that I'm in the middle of and walking
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
and chatting about with the Father every morning. It's been a really interesting 6 months, but I'm excited because
Yeah.
I've learned to partner with the season. The sooner you get on board, girl, pick up that tool and get on with it. Like, let's not fight it anymore. Let's
Yeah.
see what the goodness of God and what he's doing. And in his mercy, he allows you to walk through these seasons because you're always moving towards that dream of your heart, right?
Yeah.
But there's an equipping that's constantly happening. I don't think you ever fully arrive,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Ooh, that's powerful. Thank you. And it's okay. Again, I said it at the very beginning. The long answers are great. And
Yeah.
I think for someone who's listening like me,
Mhm.
and the other listeners and viewers, it's like it's that I'm hearing invitation. Like there's this invitation, right? There's always more. There's always
Mhm.
deeper. And sometimes we can get stuck and stagnant, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, or God, is this will it always be like this? Or we get that C word, comfortable.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
and God's like, come a little bit deeper
Yeah.
time, so you sharing that, like you being right in the middle of that, I think it's just blessing me, but also going to bless our listeners, y'all listening and watching, that there's more, and like you said, I don't know if you said steward the season, but being aware of the season that you're
Yes.
in,
Yes.
and those shifts.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's invitation, and
Mhm.
it's good stuff.
Invitation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you miss it, it's okay. You'll get another one in a few years. He'll send you another one, right? So yeah. And to your point, like I've been in the coaching space, having incredible impact in people's
Yeah.
lives and getting to partner with the goodness of God and help people unlock. And I love that. But it was in April of 2023, March, yeah, April 2023, Father said, "Hey, would you be willing to walk away from all this if I
Mm,
asked you to?"
mm,
I was like, "Well, yeah, but why are you asking?" When God asks you those questions, sometimes you're like, but then what am I doing here? Like, what? He just said, "I'm just saying, if 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 I present a hard right or a hard left, and
huh.
you know it's of me, would you be willing?" Well, yes.
Right. Slow yes. Slow yes.
Yeah. It was literally a year to the day when this opportunity came. And at first I was like, no. And then I remembered, oh, I could feel the peace of God.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm supposed to make a hard right today. Oh my goodness. I feel like this is taking me away,
Mm,
Lord, from where you asked me to build. But now I'm seeing, no, it's not. It is
yeah.
preparation for the
Yeah.
next place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That is so powerful. And I just think that's the beauty. Like God's reminding me, like, I'm always with you.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
always, right? So the
Right.
things that come that he shares, those inklings, however people call them, it's like he's planting those seeds,
Mhm.
and going back to what you talked about, the practicality of, this identity work, and resting and reflecting. When you do that, that's strengthening the relationship. Another R word, right?
Yeah.
With him, and it's an adventure. Like and then going back to it's that adventure with him, and he causes you to reflect and remember, and it's like, I'm with you, and
Yeah.
come on,
Oh, I
help
got
me.
you. That's,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm telling you now, so you can
yeah,
process it gently for a year. So when it comes next year, you won't be surprised and you won't miss your moment,
right,
right? It's
right,
going to be good. I stepped into it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. Business, like, Lord, this is not my mountain.
right.
No, it's not your mountain and you're not here forever, but there's some things you need to pick up
Yeah. Oh,
that
that's
business
good.
people do very well
Yeah,
that you could learn from.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
What's that? Developing your inner snake. What kind of word? What God? And yet it's becoming so clear where I have some blind spots,
yeah,
right? Oh, okay. Okay, you knew. Yeah.
yeah.
But it's good. It's good. Yeah.
It's
And
so.
I think, 10 years ago, I would have thrown a fit. I'd been on the floor crying. I'd been trying to go back to the season. Like, take me back to Egypt. You brought me out here to let me die. Oh my God, it was so good. I was so blessed back there. What are we doing? And now I know, no, no, no. Just just cross the wilderness, just
Yeah,
get through it, get to the
yeah,
other side because
yeah.
there's
That's a
there's
promise.
good things there. And
Yeah,
there's people waiting on you to show up. And that's really what it's about. It's not even about you. It's about the people groups. It's about the systems. It's about the single moms. It's about whoever you're called to waiting on you to show
yeah,
up.
yeah,
There's only one you, right? And so I think about that. I'm like, well, there's people waiting on me to show up. So I need to put on my big girl pants today and figure out what it is that God's trying to show me and teach
yeah.
me and walk in humility and realize that I don't think I want to be in that last season. It was good.
Oh yeah,
I could stay there. We could talk about the glory days. The people that still talk about college, like in the glory, it's good. Girl, that's 30 years ago. Like
right,
what are you doing now? What,
right.
right? So I'm
Yeah,
going to be careful that I'm not looking back and over connecting emotionally to a past that was amazing, but forfeiting my future.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
it's good.
That's good. Thank you, Melody.
Yes, thank you, Candace. This has been
Been
fun.
so fun.
I talk
So
too much,
no,
probably, but
you
it's
don't.
fun.
No, you don't. Like you were spitting fire. And again, I know I was blessed. That means everyone else is blessed by listening and watching, and connecting with you. And I know they're like, again, as you were speaking, I'm just like, oh, I was getting fired up. I
Yeah,
was getting
yeah,
fired up. So I'm excited about what's next. And so tell us, where are you hanging out lately? How can people connect with you? Like I said, I will put the link to your book
sure.
in the show notes and description. But if someone wants to connect with you, I don't know, social media or
Sure. Yeah,
another
I'm on
platform.
Instagram, Facebook, but really Substack is where I'm spending a lot of my time.
Yeah.
So I'll send you my Substack link,
Okay.
but Instagram, it's Melody Dowlearn. Facebook, Melody. I keep it simple. Let's just
Yep.
keep it simple. You can find me. I don't currently have a website because I've really cut back on my coaching, and so I've just kind of disabled that for a while because I need to focus and not be tempted.
Right.
I can help, right? Um, and so, but yeah, but that's where I'm pretty much hanging out, social media or Substack.
Okay, awesome. You all definitely, I know you will connect with Melody. Tell her hi, tell her how you got there, and definitely purchase her book, Kingdom Identity, Rediscover Your Identity and Align Your Vision. Gonna bless you. So, Melody, thank you again.
Thank you, Candace.
Yes, and until next time, you guys, peace.